Which of the following regarding red blood cells is true? Option A says red blood cells have a nucleus. And if you remember, a red blood cell looks like this. It's like that biconcave disc. So it's kind of like if you took a ball of clay, let's say, and then you smushed it down, and then you use like your thumb and finger on either end to kind of push in a little bit. So it's like indented, but not an actual break, like a hole. That's what a red blood cell would look like. So as we can see, this is the whole structure. There's no nucleus inside the red blood cells, so we can eliminate option A. Option B says RBCs don't use glucose for energy, and red blood cells do use glucose for energy. Without glucose, they would die and they would be not for use. Something to note about glucose and red blood cells is that insulin is not needed for sugar or glucose to enter the red blood cell, which is why red blood cells are useful for seeing how someone's blood sugar levels are over a period of time, because whether they have insulin or not, the sugar will easily enter into the red blood cell, which actually leads to option D over here. So we can eliminate this. That's true. Red blood cells use glucose for energy. For option D, it says red blood cells have a lifespan of 200 days. It actually is 120 days. But something interesting just to note for that is when we were talking about the glucose entering the red blood cells, this is a good indication of long-term levels for someone's blood sugar levels over time. The 120 days is how we measure an A1C. So over this period of time, the lifespan of the red blood cell, we can measure how the glucose levels are within the red blood cell over these days, and that is how you get your A1C level. So not related directly to this question, but just a good tidbit to note while we're on the subject. So we know that D we could eliminate as well because the lifespan is 120 days, not 200 days. So we can eliminate that. So option C here is saying that red blood cells have a hemoglobin as a chromogenic substance. And what this means is it's stating that hemoglobin, or you might see written like this, is inside the red blood cell, and that it's there as a chromogenic substance, which is a fancy way of saying that there's coloring to it, because that's what makes the red blood cell red, because the heme and the hemoglobin is red, so red. And this is correct. Hemoglobin is definitely part of the structure of the red blood cell. This is how oxygen is transported and how we get oxygenation to all our tissues. So the red blood cells having hemoglobin as a chromogenic structure is correct. So option C will be your answer for this question.